Lexi Hull has been spotted back. This is a tweet from
The 2025 WNBA season was supposed to end with a exhale. It was supposed to be the moment where the Indiana Fever, a franchise that had just sprinted through the most scrutinized, high-pressure campaign in the history of women's basketball, finally got to catch its breath. Think about what they accomplished. They broke attendance records that had stood for decades. They shattered viewership milestones. I snapped a 10-year playoff drought that had hung over the city like a dark cloud. Led by Caitlin Clark, the generational phenomenon, they didn't just play basketball, they became a cultural event. The expectation was that the offseason would be a time for victory laps, for resting bruised bodies, and for quiet preparation. But if you are listening to this, you know that is not what happened. The silence of the offseason has been shattered. It hasn't been broken by the sound of sneakers on a court or the blowing of a whistle. It has been shattered by the tectonic grinding of a franchise and an entire league in the midst of a violent, unprecedented transformation. When the headlines say Caitlin Clark is in shock, it is easy to dismiss it as clickbait. It is easy to roll your eyes and think it's just another exaggerated sports story. But I am here to tell you that it is not hyperbole. It is a reflection of a rapidly shifting reality where the team she elevated is being pulled apart by forces both internal and external. We are going to take a long, hard look at the chaotic landscape facing the Fever. We are going to dissect the rise of Project B, a multi-billion-dollar disruptor league that has successfully poached Clark's closest ally, Sophie Cunningham. We are going to chronicle the sudden meteoric ascension of Lexie Hull from a role player to an indispensable franchise cornerstone. We are going to investigate the systemic failures of the Fever's medical infrastructure that turned the 2025 season into a war of attrition. And we are going to analyze the widening economic chasm between Clark, whose 8-figure endorsement portfolio insulates her from league economics, and her teammates who are forced to make career-altering decisions just to secure their financial futures. This is a story of high stakes. It is a story of broken bodies, and it is a story of the aggressive maneuvers of a new basketball world order. To understand the shockwaves reverberating through the Fever locker room, we have to start with the money, and not just WNBA money. We have to look at the economic singularity that has emerged to challenge the entire system. It's called Project B. Project B is not your typical overseas league. For years, WNBA players have gone to Turkey or Russia or China to make their real money. But Project B is different. It is an existential challenge to the WNBA's economic model, backed by deep pockets and a Silicon Valley ideology. It emerged from the shadows in late 2025, founded by a coalition of tech heavyweights. We are talking about people like Jeff Prentice, a co-founder of Skype, and Grady Burnett, a former executive at Facebook and Google. Their thesis is terrifyingly simple. Women's basketball is an undervalued asset class. They believe that if you unshackle the sport from the WNBA's conservative salary structures, it is capable of delivering tech-like returns. Unlike the WNBA, which operates under a collective bargaining agreement that caps supermax salaries around $241,000, Project B is built on a venture capital model. Reports indicate the league aimed to raise a staggering $5 billion to finance operations. $5 billion. That kind of capitalization allows them to offer player contracts that are mathematically impossible for the WNBA to match. The league's compensation packages reportedly start at $2 million for a season. Let that sink in for a moment. $2 million. The season runs from November to April. That figure is approximately 8 times the WNBA Supermax salary. This financial disparity creates a singularity event. For the first time in history, the primary source of wealth for elite women's basketball players is not the domestic league. It isn't the traditional European powers like Fenerbahce or Prague. It is a startup league operating during the American offseason, right here in our backyard. The legitimacy of Project B is bolstered by who is writing the checks. The capitalization table reads like a who's who of sports royalty. Tennis legend Novak Djokovic is an investor. WNBA icon Candace Parker is backing it. When you have names like that involved, it lends immediate credibility to the venture. It tells the players that this is real. However, it hasn't been without controversy. Speculation ran rampant about the funding sources. There were whispers about the involvement of the Saudi Public Investment Fund. Co-founder Grady Burnett was actually forced to publicly clarify the league's relationship with Sayla, a Saudi-owned events company. He stated that Project B pays Sayla for services rather than receiving direct investment from the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund. That distinction was aimed at quelling ethical concerns among players and fans, but the sheer scale of the money involved maintains an air of mystery. Sophie Cunningham herself alluded to 4 huge tech companies being involved. The secrecy around the long-term sustainability of the league only adds to the tension. Then there is the schedule. Project B runs from November to April. It is designed to run concurrently with the WNBA offseason. In theory, this allows players to participate in both, but in reality, it creates a physical load management crisis. The WNBA has been pushing for stricter prioritization rules to ensure players are rested and present for training camps. Project B has a grueling travel schedule, touring Asia, Europe, and the Americas. It directly conflicts with the WNBA's desire for player recovery. For a team like the Indiana Fever, which struggled mightily with injuries in 2025, the prospect of key players logging heavy minutes in a global touring league during the offseason is a nightmare scenario. It threatens to bring players into the 2026 training camp already fatigued, exacerbating the very issues that derailed their previous campaign. And this brings us to the first domino to fall in Indianapolis, Sophie Cunningham. Sophie Cunningham is known as the emotional heartbeat of the Fever. She is Caitlin Clark's on-court enforcer. When things get rough, when opponents try to bully the rookie, Cunningham is the one who steps in. Her decision to join Project B represents a fracture in the team's continuity and a stark illustration of the league's economic realities. In late 2025, it was confirmed that she had signed with the new league. Her reaction to the deal was characteristically unfiltered. She took to social media to joke about the salary, implying it would secure her unlimited Arby's for life. It was a funny line, classic Sophie, but the subtext was deadly serious. The contract, estimated at over $2 million, secured her financial future in a way her WNBA career never could. Think about the math. Cunningham's WNBA salary in 2025 was approximately $100,000. The Project B deal pays her 20 times that amount. 20 times. And she only has to commit for 5 months. For a player entering unrestricted free agency in 2026, this creates immense leverage. Cunningham no longer needs the Fever's money to survive. She can negotiate from a position of absolute power. She can demand not just salary, but role security and roster input. The shock for Caitlin Clark was personal. Cunningham revealed on her podcast Show Me Something that she actively recruited Clark to join her in Project B. She wanted her teammate with her, but Clark's response was a firm no. This refusal highlights the divergent realities of the two teammates. Caitlin Clark earned an estimated $16 million in endorsements in 2025. She has deals with Nike, Gatorade, State Farm. She does not need the $2 million paycheck from Project B. Her priority is brand maintenance and physical recovery. She can afford to rest. She can afford to play golf. Sophie Cunningham, lacking that 8-figure cushion, effectively had no choice but to take the money. This split creates a physical separation between the quarterback and her bodyguard for 6 months of the year. It interrupts the chemistry building that is crucial for a young team. Cunningham's role on the Fever went beyond statistics. She was the protector. With Cunningham overseas and potentially fatigued upon return, or worse, risking injury in a secondary league, the Fever faced the prospect of entering 2026 without their primary tough guy presence operating at 100%. The enforcer role is difficult to quantify, but impossible to replace. Losing Cunningham to the wear and tear of Project B is a significant strategic blow to Indiana's title hopes. But while the headlines chased the Project B drama, another story was unfolding. Lexi Hull quietly executed the most significant transformation of any player on the Fever roster. Her rise from a perimeter role player to a statistical anomaly and fan icon is the biggest move of the offseason. It is a shift that fundamentally alters the Fever's trajectory. Lexi Hull's 2025 season was a masterclass in efficiency. After a slow start to her career, she found her rhythm in the Clark-led offense. By the midpoint of the season, Hull led the entire WNBA in three-point shooting percentage, hitting 57% of her attempts. 57%, that is video game efficiency. Her performance reached historic levels in August 2025. Over a 5-game stretch, Hull became only the 4th player in WNBA history to shoot at least 70% from three-point range on a minimum of 20 attempts. This places her in the company of legends like Dawn Staley, Cynthia Cooper, and Elena Della Donna. Why is this the biggest move? Because it unlocks the entire floor for Caitlin Clark. Clark operates best with maximum spacing. When Hull is on the floor shooting nearly 60%, defenders cannot help offer to trap Clark. If they leave Hull, they give up 3 points. If they stay with Hull, Clark has a lane to the basket. The statistical correlation is undeniable. The Fever's offense operates at elite efficiency when Hull is spacing the floor. But Hull's value is bilateral. She is widely regarded as the Fever's best perimeter defender. Advanced metrics support this. She ranked second on the team in defensive win shares and led the team in drawing offensive fouls, recording 12 charges drawn in the 2025 season. Her toughness became a viral sensation following a game against the Seattle Storm. Hull suffered severe bruising around both eyes. She had shiners that left her looking like a prizefighter who had just gone 12 rounds. Instead of hiding, she famously pulled down her sunglasses during a media scrum to reveal the battle wounds. She joked, "I wish this was a filter, but this is insane." This moment galvanized the fan base. It earned her the moniker of a warrior heroine and cemented her status as the team's grit and grind identity. The culmination of Hull's season occurred in Game 3 of the playoffs against the Atlanta Dream. With the Fever clinging to an 86-85 lead and 7.4 seconds remaining, the season hung in the balance. The Dream put the ball in the hands of Ryan Howard, their superstar. Hull, anticipating the play, jumped the passing lane. She secured a steal that denied Atlanta a final shot, effectively sending the Fever to the semifinals. It was a play that combined athleticism, anticipation, and sheer will. Media outlets circulated the clip, noting that Hull had saved the season without Caitlin Clark having to touch the ball. This play was the move that transitioned her from a role player to a clutch performer trusted in the dying seconds of an elimination game. Off the court, Hull made her own biggest move by signing an endorsement deal with Portland Gear, becoming the brand's first WNBA athlete. This partnership is significant. It validates her growing marketability independent of Clark. It taps into her Pacific Northwest roots, creating a regional power base. For a player entering restricted free agency, demonstrating the ability to move merchandise is a powerful negotiating chip. However, the context for all of these roster moves is a 2025 season defined by a catastrophic failure of player health. The Fever did not just lose games, they lost bodies at a rate that defied statistical probability, leading to accusations of incompetence within the medical staff. This is the cursed season. The Fever's injury list for 2025 was extensive and debilitating. The team lost 5 key contributors to season-ending injuries. Sophie Cunningham tore her MCL. Sydney Colson tore her ACL. Ari McDonald broke a bone in her right foot. Chloe Bibby went down with a knee injury. In a cruel twist of irony, even the coaching staff was not immune. Player development coach Keith Porter ruptured his Achilles tendon during a road trip, requiring surgery. This attrition rate forced the Fever to sign multiple hardship players and constantly shuffle rotations. It prevented the team from building continuity. Head coach Stephanie White was blunt in her assessment, stating, "I've never in my 25 years in this league seen all of this at once." Most concerning for the franchise was the mismanagement of Caitlin Clark's health. Clark suffered a series of soft tissue injuries that are often red flags for overuse or improper conditioning. Her season included left quad tightness in the preseason, a minor groin injury mid-season, a major groin injury on July 15 that led to an extended absence, and then the breaking point, an ankle sprain that occurred during rehab on August. The fact that the franchise cornerstone suffered a rehab setback was the final straw for fan patience. Social media threads erupted with accusations that the bonehead training staff did not understand how to manage the load of a professional athlete. The organization's response was swift and silent. On October 24, 2025, Pacer Sports and Entertainment posted a job listing for a senior director of player health and performance. This listing was interpreted by analysts and fans as a tacit admission that the previous regime had failed. The description called for an overhaul of the team's medical protocols. This administrative move is arguably the most critical of the offseason. If the Fever cannot keep Clark on the floor, no amount of roster maneuvering matters. We also have to talk about the internal dynamics of the locker room. The Fever's culture is heavily influenced by the massive wealth gap between their superstar and the rest of the roster. This economic reality drives the decisions of players like Cunningham and Hull. Caitlin Clark's financial profile is an anomaly in women's sports. Her 2025 WNBA base salary was around $78,000. With bonuses, she maybe hit $114,000. But her endorsement earnings? $16 million. Clark earns approximately 140 times her WNBA salary through off-court deals. This financial independence allows her to treat the WNBA as her primary focus without needing to chase off-season money. In contrast, her teammates operate in a different economic universe. Sophie Cunningham's WNBA salary was around $100,000. Her Project B salary is $2 million plus. For Cunningham, playing in Project B is not a choice. It is a financial necessity to maximize her earning window. The disparity creates a two-speed locker room, one player who can afford to rest and 11 others who must grind year-round. This dynamic puts immense pressure on the Fever front office to secure a collective bargaining agreement that narrows this gap, lest they lose more players to disruptor leagues. Looking ahead to the 2026 offseason, the Fever face a potential roster apocalypse. The convergence of contract expirations and the new CBA creates a scenario where the team could look drastically different. The 2026 free agent class is historic. Nearly 87% of the league's all-stars will be free agents. For the Fever, the specific exposures are massive. Kelsey Mitchell is an unrestricted free agent. She was the team's leading scorer in the playoffs and an MVP candidate. She will demand a max contract, projected to be around $250,000 or significantly higher under the new CBA proposals. Lexi Hull is a restricted free agent. The Fever hold the right to match offers, but Hull's breakout season guarantees she will receive aggressive offer sheets. Teams with cap space like Golden State or Portland could front-load contracts to make it painful for Indiana to match. And Sophie Cunningham, already signed to Project B, has explicitly stated she wants a bigger contract to buy a house. Her return is far from guaranteed. Negotiations for the new CBA are centering on a $5 million salary cap for 2026. This is a massive jump from the current $1.5 million cap. This influx of cash is necessary to compete with Project B, but it also means free agent prices will skyrocket. The Fever will need every dollar of that cap space to retain Mitchell and Hull, leaving little room to add external stars like Satu Sabali, despite the rumors linking the German star to Indiana. On top of that, with expansion teams in Toronto and Portland joining the league, the Fever must navigate an expansion draft. They will likely be able to protect only 6 players. The projected protection list includes Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell if she resigns, Lexie Hull, and maybe Nalissa Smith, though that presents a trade asset dilemma. This leaves depth pieces like Cunningham or key bench players exposed to being poached. Despite the financial and physical turmoil, the Fever possess one intangible asset that cannot be bought: elite chemistry. The bond between Clark, Hull, and Cunningham has been a marketing goldmine and a stabilizing force. During the offseason, Clark participated in the Annika Pro-Am golf tournament. Her caddies were none other than Lexi Hull and Sophie Cunningham. The footage from the event showed a group of friends roasting each other relentlessly. Clark joked that her caddy had left to go to the bathroom, while Cunningham and Hull critiqued her swing. This public display of friendship reinforces the squad narrative that fans adore. Cunningham's social media presence has been a highlight reel of banter. She famously called Clark Inspector Gadget regarding a pre-game outfit. In an interview, she stated that Clark is the last person she would trust with her social media because she is a shit starter. These moments are critical for high retention in the digital age. They convert casual fans into obsessives who follow the team's every move. It is the Taylor Swift 2.0 effect. But friendship doesn't heal ligaments, and banter doesn't pay the mortgage. The shock described in the headlines is the realization that the Indiana Fever are not a finished product. They are a fragile ecosystem under siege. The Project B shock is the loss of Sophie Cunningham to a rival league. It proves that the Fever cannot rely on loyalty alone. The WNBA's economic model is broken, and players are acting rationally to secure their futures. Clark's refusal to join Project B shows her commitment, but she cannot subsidize the roster. She cannot pay her teammates to stay. The Lexie Hull revelation is the silver lining. Her biggest move was forcing the league to respect her as a two-way star. Retaining her is now arguably as important as re-signing Mitchell, given her specific fit with Clark. The medical imperative is the most important non-player move of the year. The stealth firing of the medical leadership is a desperate bid for survival. If the new senior director of player health cannot solve the soft tissue puzzle, the 2026 season will end just like 2025, with Caitlin Clark in street clothes. As the Fever head into 2026, they are no longer the plucky upstarts. They are a franchise navigating the harsh realities of professional sports economics. Every friendship has a price tag. Every shiner is a badge of honor in a war for survival. The biggest moves haven't happened on the court. They've happened in the boardrooms of Project B and the MRI tubes of Indianapolis. The quiet of the offseason is a deception. The machinery of the league is grinding, changing, and breaking. And for Caitlin Clark, looking at a roster in flux and a league in chaos, the shock is just beginning.